recording. Ugly green screen, bad shadows. So I didn't expect to be doing this just now, but something came up over the weekend, and I did a really quick fan edit of a cartoon series that ran in the mid-90s called the Maxx. If you have not seen it, and you're into dark, existential, multi-dimensional comic book type stuff, and certainly if you're into animation, this is a definite recommendation coming from me to you. I'm gonna try and not spoil or anything. If I do, I'll try and say something first. But let me tell you what I did, because I kind of did a lot. The reason that I did this fan edit is because you can get through the whole series in one night. It was 13 episodes. There's one single story arc over those 13 episodes. It was really a mini-series. The 13 episodes are all 10 minutes each. So when you put those all together, it's somewhere around the length of a movie. It's actually about 2 hours and 11 minutes. The first thing that started to bother me about turning this into a movie from a TV series is the fact that it's square. It's TV shaped. I wanted to make it widescreen, just to give it more of an epic kind of movie feel, which wouldn't be too hard. I mean, let's see. That would require make the whole project 1920 by 1080, and then we'll just bring the whole thing up. Move those keyframes, folks. So you can see, you know, with a scene like this, really quickly, we're making it widescreen, adds the whole cinematic feel to it, you know, makes it feel more epic. But the thing about the Maxx is they just took the comic book panels right out of the, right off the pages and put it into the show. So something like this, it's just something that immediately gets lost when you go widescreen and cut off the top and the bottom. Basically, the Maxx is a work of art that was made in a square shape, so I gotta leave it that way. And just because I like to mess around, one of the things I jumped right on was making some sort of an opening credit sequence to it, because there wasn't anything like that in the show. And the way that Maxx played on back in the day was it came on MTV at some weird hour in the middle of the night as part of this Oddities series, and this was like the opening sequence for that, was this logo on a billboard. And so I wanted to recreate that, so I put it in Flash, I traced it, and I added this sort of dirty canvasy feel to it to sort of emulate that. And just, you know, added a quick little animation to it. The other thing that I thought was obvious, because it did air on MTV, was to get the MTV movie or MTV Films logo on there. And then I needed something a little bit more flashy for the credit, or for the title at the beginning of it, because in the original version, all they do in the TV show is just they flash to the title. And I wanted something a little bit more crazy for the movie. I was starting to work on one, but it turns out there's actually somebody on YouTube who has made a live-action web series based on the Maxx. It's definitely got that fan film feel to it, but yeah, you know, if you're interested in those guys, you should probably go ahead and subscribe to their channel. While you're at it, you can go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel if you feel like it, which nobody does. I just took what they had done, because they animated this thing where all the parts of the name kind of get swiped in like it's being painted. And then you just basically take the intro off of the show and you cram all 13 episodes together. So I wanted to just squish the whole thing down into a movie, but because I like working, the challenge for this came from making it into a legitimate movie and making it actually feel like a film. The thing with TV is they got the commercial breaks, and especially this show having been just 10-minute episodes, the story would just stop really suddenly and then pick back up, you know, a week later. They have these little narrative bits that just more or less repeat where the show left off. Like this one right here. He wakes up.
Great. Where the heck am I now?
And then it fades to black. You got to get rid of those fades to black. And then when it comes back from the commercial, he says almost the same thing.
So now what?
And so I kind of had to make choices, like, you know, which one of those am I going to keep? And this is why I want to do the live streams of the fan edits, because a lot of this process is kind of more interesting while I'm doing it, rather than just looking at it after the fact. So the connection between episode 5 and 6 there is one shot that is reused. Actually, the opening shot from episode 6 is reused from one of the many shots at the end of episode 5. There's a lot of interesting narration that happens at the end of episode 5. I think really the problem comes up because in episode 5, she's speaking from a current perspective, and in episode 6, she's speaking more like she's looking back at it. But in both regards, she's actually looking back at it, and it's also the same scene continued. In order to make that work, obviously, cut out the reused shot, and I just had to make some cuts and dices on certain pieces of dialogue. Yeah, in order for this shot to get the entire effect of it within the time that had kind of been crunched on me by cutting it up, I just sped it up a little bit. The one transition I'm actually proud of as a piece of creative work is between 4 and 5. This one ends with this like teardrop just falling into the frame, and it just sits there. And the next episode starts with this wipe of like the bridge kind of moving out of the way, but it's mostly black. I thought, well, there's a really cool way to stick those two together, and just kind of adding a mask to it made it so the wipe actually happens over the previous shot. Some of them were easy, you know, just a simple crossfade to put the two episodes together. One of the transitions between the two episodes was especially tricky. If you have not seen the show and you're interested in it, major spoiler coming up. There's a scene where this dude's head is on the floor, and the episode ends with this guy's head on the floor. And then in the next episode, it just starts off with them saying, "Hey, that was weird how a monster came in and took the head." So in a movie, that makes no sense to go from that to just somebody saying, "Hey, it was weird how that thing happened." One thing that they do in this show a lot is they use a crack of thunder at the beginning of every episode and in between a lot of the scene transitions. So I used that to my advantage, and I just made a couple of images to sort of indicate that the head had been taken. First, we got the shot that the show ends with. Flash to white, flash to a negative of, like a black and white negative of the original shot. White again, now a positive black and white. And then I photoshopped in the silhouette of the monster. It's white because the monster is a white colored monster. And then I photoshopped out the head entirely. So this is kind of how it goes. If I could have animated an entire sequence and put it in there, I would have, but that's all the animation I allowed myself to do on this. I did a little bit of high intensity credits, which was really just, all I did was went to IMDb and just copied and pasted all the credits into here. I had to clean them up a bit, just wanted it to be a little bit interesting. I added the Tom Waits song, Earth Died Screaming. I actually added this particular song for two reasons. One being that the lyrics make it really appropriate for this, and also because this was an album that came out just prior to this show's release. So, you know, logically, in a really needlessly nerdy way, it makes perfect sense. The next thing I got coming up is going to be my monstrous fan edit of Terminator 3. This one's a little bit more creative, more opinion-based. It's basically my attempt to turn Terminator 3 into a more serious science fiction film, which required me to cut this movie all to hell. You can see how much stuff. And then I think after I get through that, we're gonna get into the live streams where I'm gonna be doing something with Star Wars or the Marvel movies. I'm not sure which yet. I'll just leave you guys with Arnold Schwarzenegger saying a name kind of funny.
Catherine Brewster. Brewster, Catherine Brewster, Catherine Brewster, Brewster, Catherine Brewster, 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 Bruce, 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 Bruce,